do you look at the prices? I'm like, no, it's Costco. I'm not buying the luxury good. I'm not buying the cheap good. I'm buying something that's reliable. I don't care if it's something in the auto aisle. I don't care if it's my, organic apples for the day, but I know I'm getting something quality, reliable, and that's how I always think about it.
Welcome to the Physician Sense Podcast, a podcast designed specifically for physicians, offering a breakdown of complex financial topics to help you develop your financial IQ, further your financial journey, and improve your well-being. Whether you're a medical student, resident, fellow, or attending physician, you're sure to learn something new that will benefit your journey. And now your hosts, Chad Chubb and Tyler Olson.
Welcome to another episode of the Physician Sense Podcast. I am your co-host, Chad Chubb. I'm joined by the one, the only, the fabulous, the wonderful Tyler Olson. How are you, my friend?
I feel wonderful. It's good to see you, Chad. I'm excited to talk about advisor fees because that one, no matter how many times we talk about it in person or on social media, there's so many questions about this, and I'm excited to educate on the basic level. So that's what I'm eager for. Yeah,
I'm with you, man. This was one that I was excited for when you noted it, and we kind of put it in our little log of things to talk about. Because to me, it's we kind of talk about how like designations can become like an alphabet soup, but now it feels like the different terminology for fees has also become like an alphabet soup. And then there's some that overlap. There's some that make sense. There's some that don't make sense. So our goal today is to walk you through what do they mean? What should you be looking for? And it's not to poo-poo on anyone's strategy. Tyler and I have very similar philosophies on how we build this. It doesn't mean that we have it figured out, but we're here to protect the physician. And that is what we will do by walking you through what these terms mean, what you should look for, maybe pros and cons to each, but it's a fun one. So let's get into it. So here's the list that Tyler and I made pre-show. So we're going to try to walk through all these. We got fee-based. We got advice only. We got flat fee. We got AUM, which stands for assets under management. We got commission, and we got fee only. It's a fun list, Tyler. Where do we start, my friend?
I like going with the low-hanging fruit first. We can get, it's easy to explain. Fee-based. A fee-based advisor equals selling investment or insurance products and earning a commission based on those sales. I've been seeing that a lot lately with young physicians who want help with financial planning, but they don't have the money to pay the typically higher flat fees, and they don't have assets for advisors to manage. So they're not really able to work with those shops, but they'll work with someone who is a financial advisor and also is a disability insurance agent or a life insurance agent. And what you're doing is they're like, we'll do some financial planning for you, and you could buy this insurance product through us. The insurance company pays the advisor or the agent a commission, and then they should theoretically use those funds as a way to say, like, yeah, you paid me and I'm going to give you some advice. So that's what fee-based is. Is that accurate? Did I miss anything?
Yeah, no, I like it. And just again, to make sure that we're being fair to everybody, that's when I first started. This is what we were. I mean, we still sold disability insurance. We sold term life insurance. We didn't do any of the other crazy stuff, right? I actually share the story all the time. It wasn't until I met Larry. This was 5, 6, 7 years ago now, where I was like, oh, we all have access to the same disability insurance. Like this is, and then he just pretty much put me to shame on all these different things. I was like, okay, there are much bigger experts than me. That's when we kind of got out of that field. But yeah, this is someone that likely can sell you a disability or term life insurance, hopefully nothing else, but then they could still be managing assets for a flat fee, maybe an AUM fee. So essentially fee-based means that they can wear two hats. They could be what we label as the advisory side, which is like a non-commission based side. And then they could be on the broker side, which is still commission based. And that can be in the form of, I'm using just, insurance products, but technically they could be selling you Class A mutual funds as well. They could sell you an annuity in there. There's other products in there that we're not really touching on, but yeah, I think you nailed it. And your situation is what we see quite a bit, right? Let's sell this physician a disability policy. get paid, a couple $100, maybe a couple $1,000 up front. Maybe they plug in a whole life policy. We'll wait for their assets to grow, and then we'll be able to turn them over to the higher AUM side of it because they have assets to manage now.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say there's anything inherently wrong there. I will say one of the things that we notice in that situation is after something is sold, there is very little to, if for lack of better words, no financial planning involved. And it's almost like a waiting game. Like, hey, give it a few years. They hit that attending pay, start to crank it up. That's usually what we see there. But fee-based, I always say, just think of it as they can wear both hats. They can be wearing both sides of it, which, if they disclose that conflict, good. But naturally, there's a conflict in every model that we'll walk through today. But that one, I think kind of stands out a little bit more than others. At least, we'll get to the commission side where they're only selling products. But this one, you got that double hat going.
It comes down to the battle of financial incentives. And it's something that we all face in every field. Like you doctors, you also face it in like the career decisions that you make, what sort of business model you accept to be involved in. And it's no different here. So it's important for you to recognize those financial incentives in which advisor you end up working with. Because like to Chad's point, if they sell you a product, they give you some advice for a little while around it, but then they kind of shrink away, that should not surprise you because you're not paying them. Like you paid them in the commission that they earn from the insurance product. And it can be sizable, like 40, 50, 60% of the first year's disability insurance premium, or something like maybe 80 to 90% of the first year's term life insurance premium. So it can be something, but then it trails off, and their focus, just like anybody else's, is going to be, where am I earning money? And so you just need to recognize that when you're engaging with someone like that, this is not a true planning relationship because you're not paying them to be in an ongoing relationship. You had like kind of a short stint where they helped you get a product. They maybe gave you help answer some other questions, but the relationship kind of fades away. I do know some advisors who, and this is actually coming from the doctor's side, telling me that they've had an advisor that's been willing to work with them for free over the terms of their residency and fellowship. And so when they transition into attendinghood, it was like, yeah, this was my person. That is like I mean, it's I don't know how I feel about that, because I have reserved a few spaces that are like that. I work with some fellows and residents like that, but not very many, because I know that if I try to do that too much, I'm going to either do a bad job for them because I'm not paying enough attention, or I'm going to not be running my business appropriately. So that's a tough one. What do you think?
Yeah, well, so I feel like whenever I hear that statement, we then find out that there was some type of product that was sold at some point, like earlier on. Like when we meet a fellow or early attending, they're like, oh no, I have an advisor. I work with them for free for the past few years. And then like, well, no, he's, he or she's listed as the agent here. So they got paid here. Yeah, you have a Roth IRA, but it's covered in, A-share mutual funds. So like you paid them, almost a 6% commission on all those. Like you paid them. So that's how I've usually seen. I've never seen like true, like pro bono, like, hey, no, we're just going to give you good advice, ideally really good advice for a little bit. And then once things kick in, then we'll turn it on. So if you've done that, kudos to you, because and I do believe you're one of the few people in the world I actually believe that would do that. But I usually see it on the other side that it's something was sold.
Yeah, no, that's true. Like that's probably most common. But I think so. I think that is something to be aware of, to be cautious of. But I can tell you, even in the best of circumstances, and I try to hold myself to a high moral standard. I mean, there's some I just like, I help along the way. They have my email address. They email me. Sometimes we get on a quick phone call. I guess what I'm trying to say is that there are mental limitations in that sort of arrangement. I know that I'll hit a wall. And so I don't take on any new trainees like that because I know I cannot do it. And so it's problematic but it's hard because doctors need to get advice. Yeah. And I mean, that's why like you with your YouTube channel, me with my Twitter and TikTok channels. We're constantly educating so that you all, and of course this podcast, duh, we are trying to help you to get the information that you need, because you may not be able to pay us or other advisors, but you still need to make decisions. The fee based is like, it seems like it's like this is a good situation, and it might not be.
Yeah, and whether it's a fee based conversation or what you like, someone's actually giving true free advice. My main concern there would be how proactive are they being in that early part of your career when you're making a lot of big financial decisions. That's always been like my biggest pet peeve on the fee based side is like they sell you a product. I'll wait till you have more assets to manage, but you're making so many vital decisions between that, policy being sold per se and when you have enough money to meet their minimums. A lot of life occurred in there, like a lot of big decisions, and that's my bigger concern there. And not to say like some of you could be, if you're a little bit later in tenure, you may have been working with a fee-based advisor this entire time, right? They helped you with the disability policy, they helped you with the term life, and they're actually just doing great work now. So it's not to say that this can't be a long-term great relationship, but you just need to, again, that's the goal of today, right? Make sure you understand everything. As I always say, you need to know what you're paying. Because if you know what you're paying, you can judge the quality of advice at least to see is it worth it. My joke with our clients is we always want you to be the only physician in the hospital cafeteria that can explain how you pay your financial advisor. And we'll get into flat fees and all that, but I think that's one of the beauties of just saying like, hey, this is what we pay. As soon as you get into commissions, even get into AUM, that number, it's a little bit harder to say like, I pay this. So
yeah,
I think it's pretty good for fee-based. We missing anything?
No, I think we're good. I think we could talk about the let's do advice only, because that's another limited one. So advice only is a branch of fee only. Like fee only and fee based are like umbrellas, and the fee based we just discussed, where there's assets can be managed or products can be sold for commission. Under the fee only umbrella, there are several options, but in all cases, they're not supposed to be able to sell any product for commission under the fee only umbrella. And one of the branches of it is advice only. Advice only is where it is a flat fee and there is no investment management being done. So, and that was actually what I was for quite a while. I was just advice only. I would educate our clients on how to manage their investments themselves. And it was really great because there's a lot of people that want to be able to do it. They're very much DIYers. So if this is you, the advice only space is a good option because you pay a very simple, clear, transparent, flat fee for advice on anything in the realm of financial and tax planning. But that it does necessitate that you will manage your own investments. That advisor will not manage your investments for you because they've chosen a business model that does not allow that functionality. That cover it?
Yeah, I think this is probably one of the more straightforward ones. To me, the key here is you have to be comfortable managing your own investments, right? Because ideally, you're going to get fantastic advice from someone that doesn't want to manage assets. They're not selling you anything. We already took that one out of it. But you have to be comfortable managing your investments because the world's best financial plan with horrific asset management where you allow emotions to come in, you're trying to get super sexy with it, can go wrong very quickly. So I feel like this model is very good for someone that's already very comfortable with investment management, or I don't know how you would describe it. Sometimes even like utilizing some of the like the robo models, whether it's like the Fidelity robo platform or even Vanguard's PAS system, where like they have some guardrails in place for you, but you're not the one in there, pulling all the levers to rebalance your backdoor Roth. So I think advice only is one of the more straightforward models. I would think you would almost label it as probably your lowest conflict model. Because there's not really a lot of conflicts of interest that can sneak in there. I mean, I guess if you're charging an ungodly amount and then just kind of given like some not so great plan.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts? I mean, it's pretty clean model.
Yeah, I think it is I think in terms of hidden conflicts,
Yeah.
it's like it has the least.
Yeah.
The biggest one would just be a person doesn't really know what they're looking at and they get a plan and they think, oh, this is great. And it actually isn't that great. But that will reveal itself in time. And that would be the case with any product or service that's ever sold in any industry. So I don't even think it's necessarily a standout one that needs to be identified outside of the normal, buyer beware approach to anything that we ever do.
Yeah.
I think the one thing to be cautious of with advice only, and this is actually one of the reasons why we moved out of it, is overestimating your ability to manage your own investments and keep yourself accountable with your planning, decisions, and tasks. Because we've had a lot of people that were on the advice only track and they said that they were good to go with moving forward on the things. And then at that point, we disengage and they're going to move forward and like carry out their investment decisions, rebalancing, tax planning moves, and managing their cash flow. That's all on them. We've told them what to do. Now they have to do it. And a lot of people, just because life is crazy, things come up, things change, a lot of things don't get done. So I think you have to be very confident and understand why you can have confidence that you will actually follow through on all the things that you said that you're going to do. Then advice only is great. Otherwise, you might be paying for something and not really knowing how to use it.
Yeah. I feel like in our world, the advisor world, like a lot of times, whether it's advice only or like one-time plan builds, a lot of, and we do one time, we enjoy one-time plan builds. We do more ongoing clearly, but we still like to do one-time plan builds specifically for like the DIY community. We're very involved with White Coat Investor, where there are a good amount of DIYers who are good at what they do. But the concern is always like, you present that plan, but then there's no way to track it. So how much value are you actually adding? Like how much, things change, life change, especially I think for our demographic on who we focus on, a little bit younger physician, not to say that even an older physician, the layers of complication change throughout your journey. But I think in particular, in those accumulation years, there's just a lot going on. You go from 60,000 to 250, you have $500,000 in student loans, you're buying your first house, moving across the country, buying another house, 1 kid, 2 kids, 3 kids, not to mention like just life in general. So I feel like there's a lot happening there. So you can imagine if you take a plan, you present it, you build that plan. I usually tell our clients, like ideally when we do a one-time plan, hopefully we're getting about 5 years of runway. But, tomorrow, if you both change jobs or, you plan to have a kid, you end up having triplets, like it can change just like that. So if you do this route, whether it's advice only or one-time plans, DIYing, you just you have to do it. You have to be proactive with it. I mean, heck, You probably see the same thing. Even clients that we work with year in, year out, and we yell at them, you got to get your will, your living will, your estate documents. Like you got to get your documents out. And we yell at them twice per year, if not more than that. And it's still just dragging your feet. So imagine if you don't have, Tyler and I nagging, the odds of you getting that done probably really, really start to diminish.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. And then like, as far as the rest of the options under the fee only umbrella, that's the realm of like flat fee charging advisors and AUM or assets under management. Basically what that means, flat fee, the definition of it is that the advisor is getting compensated by you, the client, directly and only directly by you. So they're not getting any sort of revenue sharing from any insurance or investment companies. That is not directly coming through you. That goes to like, incentivizing advisors to promote one sort of product over another. And in a flat fee a fee only environment, that does not exist. Now they might charge you based on a percentage of your investments that they manage for you. That's AUM. Or they may charge you a flat fee, which is a dollar amount that has been agreed upon, that's paid sometimes monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, or it might be a combination of the two. I've seen some advisors do both, like where they do a flat fee that's charged monthly or quarterly, and then they'll do like a small AUM, like a 0.25 or 0.35%, as opposed to like 1% AUM and no flat fee. But in the end, it's just figuring out like, what's the dollar amount that I'm paying? And are these the services that I need? And is it of sufficient value for me? So those are the questions you have to ask.
Yeah. I think the best part of flat fee models, and flat fees can also take different ways, right? You can have a true, hey, no matter what household we work with, we charge XYZ per month or per year. We use a tiered approach. Where we'll kind of plug in a little bit of complexity based on income or net worth. But you should, in that relationship, know what you're paying, right? You go through it, hey, I'm paying X amount per month or X per year. AUM is a moving target, right? You should know your percent for the most part. Like, I think 1% is your more traditional number, right? But then there's a lot of tiered structures out there where, hey, the first million is at 1%, and then the next million's at 0.8, and then 0.75 and 0.6, and working your way down, which is still, I would assume if you ever asked your advisor, what's the exact fee I'm paying you, they'd be more than happy to provide it. I'm sure they probably did when they even went through the initial proposals. To your point, I actually feel like that the combination model is getting more popular, where you're going to see like a flat fee up to X amount, or if your assets are below 3 million, we charge this flat fee. Once you go above 3 million, we then transition to an AUM fee. Or, hey, this is our flat fee for every household, and then we charge a really small AUM fee, like a 25 basis points, 30 basis points. A few of the firms that I really like out there, and they're usually a little bit more in the retirement space, I think. For our client, for the younger physician, younger attendings, AUM's not super attractive because for most of you, you just don't have assets yet, right? Or at least large enough that most firms, I know Tyler and I don't have minimums in place, aren't even having those conversations. But I have noticed that there's been a pickup in flat fee with a little bit of AUM kind of on the back end of it. I think kind of just to safeguard the higher numbers as they go up.
Yeah. So let's talk for a minute about the sort of questions that you should ask. If you're going to interview an advisor and you want to filter flat fee advisors or fee only advisors or advice only, whatever it is, use the information that we shared with you so far to determine what sort of classification of advisor you would like to entertain hiring. But then during the interview itself, you have an opportunity to ask about how the fee structure works. And so it could be any of the number of things that Chad or I have mentioned. And you want to ask what those are, what the triggers are for increases in fees. Like, because it isn't always just like a single flat fee. Like currently, like you and I are both on like a tiered flat fee system where it changes depending on your income and net worth. And I was telling Chad before, I'm thinking about changing that just to like where it's like everybody just pays the same fee, because I don't know, less to explain. But it's not like any of this is like the most complex thing. It's just a couple of calculations and an honest conversation. Find out what it is that's being charged, how it's charged, when you get paid, how you pay, and what you're getting. And then compare, and also this is another thing before I forget, the fee should not be the leading factor. I mean, I think that there's a lot of doctors that do. They're like, well, I want to find the lowest cost. I think that is a mistake because they may be missing some critical intangibles about the advisor and their abilities and their accessibility and what you're actually getting in return. So I think it's important to be informed. Think of it this way. And this, many of you are already past, when you matched. So this may not apply to you in real time, but for any of you med students who are like applying for the match this year, you're not applying to your specialty based on the purported income that you're going to earn as an attending, right? You have other intangible factors that are leading that decision. But you better be informed by the compensation. The money does matter. It just isn't the leader. You got to do the same thing with your advisor decision. You got to know about the fees. You got to know what they are, how it all works, but don't let it lead the decision because it is not the most important factor.
I always like to call it my Costco. Whenever I'm looking at pricing of anything, let alone financial advising, right? I don't want the lowest cost. I don't want the highest cost. I want something reliable, smack dab in the middle. How I think about a lot of things. And my joke is always like, when I go to Costco, my wife's always like, do you look at the prices? I'm like, no, it's Costco. I'm not buying the luxury good. I'm not buying the cheap good. I'm buying something that's reliable. I don't care if it's something in the auto aisle. I don't care if it's my, organic apples for the day, but I know I'm getting something quality, reliable.
Yeah.
And that's how I always think about it. And, I think, again, as a physician, if you're just going down this rabbit hole, like looking for an advisor, you think we all do the same thing. Unfortunately, that's not the case. And there is a huge span of what you're going to get. It's actually one of my scariest factors when we have a new physician that joins us and they've never worked with another. I almost like when someone comes to us and they're like, no, I already had an advisor. Because I'm like, all right, you at least saw something.
Yeah.
Because not to say that we're perfect, we have it all figured out, but I'm like, we got a well-oiled machine here. I know what we're putting out is quality stuff. But if you haven't seen anything else in terms of like, not even the technical jargon, but like the overall service mechanism, that's where I think you just need to be careful, interview a few. Clearly the price range needs to fit what you're like. If you're like, hey, I can only spend, let's say 10 grand per year, just throwing a number, but someone quoted you 100 grand and someone quoted you 1,000, it's probably safe to like kick out. As I come back to my Costco idea, you probably are starting to see like the average seems to be around this. They're all CFPs or EAs or, they've been around the block with truly working with physicians for a while. They know the ins and outs. And then after all that, I always say, fees aside, if everyone similar technical skills, similar fee structure, then it always comes down to personality. Like, ideally, you're working with that advisor for decades. You spend your time doing the research once, and you have that advisor and their team ideally for the rest of your life. I mean, heck, all things go according to plan. It's like a generational type thing. So that's why it's all intertwined, but it's all important. And knowing how they're charging or what they're charging and what you're paying, definitely a big part of it, but certainly not the entire part of it. I mean, there's how many times have you analyzed stuff where you're like, oh my gosh, they're paying an ungodly amount of number or annual fee or monthly fee, whatever it would be. And like, what do you do with them? Well, we meet like twice per year. We look at our investment statements and that's it. You're like, oh, so there's just a very wide range of what's included for that price for, financial planning.
Yeah, no, there's a few people I think of who, and it's not even like necessarily an adversarial relationship that they have with the advisor. It's just it's a non-relationship.
Yeah.
Where it's like, but they actually crunch the numbers and they're like, we're paying $32,000 a year. And like, yeah. And I'm like, do you like, I mean, I try to not judge, like, that's a lot of money. So I like, what's happening month to month, year to year in there. And they're like, we may have an annual meeting, tell us how the investments have done. And I'm like, oh, okay. And they're like, well, let's look at the investment performance. And like, it's just like, there's so much more. See, this is another thing too. Even though we do manage assets now, I always tell people that come to work with us, we don't care if we do it for you. You can do it yourself. Mm-hmm. And our fee does not change.
Mm-hmm. Same way. Yep.
Because asset management is a convenience. It's like cleaning your house. You want someone else to do it? It's not because you can't. It's because you want to outsource it. But like, so yeah, these relationships where the entire relationship is centered on the asset management, I'm like, oh, there's so much more to be done. And so that's why you need to ask these questions. What are you doing with us? What will we get? What's the benefit? How often are we going to meet? All these things, come into play along with how much it costs. So anyway, That's all I got.
And if you're interviewing advisors, don't assume that if they're managing assets, that if their fee is $15,000 per year, that means that you're guaranteed to have at least an extra $15,000 per year of extra growth on your investment accounts. I am still shocked on how often we get the question of, oh, so then will we make that up in our investments? I'm like, I mean, ideally, yeah, I'd love to like guarantee that it's not. We're going to lose money in certain years. But you also just delegated everything to us. We nerd out on tax planning. We're going to help you with estate planning. We keep your entire financial plan in order. We're doing your cash flow, debits. How much can you buy in a house? How much can you buy your next car? You're adding the boat that your spouse told you not to get. Like, there's a lot more to it than just investment management. Ideally, unfortunately, sometimes that's not always the case. And if that's the case, they're only doing investment management, then you can actually come back to the question I just noted to challenge them on that. But yeah, a little bit of an alphabet soup out there. I do think because of where the internet has gone, I do think it's a little bit easier these days to kind of find what some of this means. Oh, another pet peeve of mine too. You have your fees listed on your website, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
That also is, I don't want to say it's not a red flag, but it's a little bit of a yellow flag to me. If you're looking for advisors and the fees not listed on the website. Because now, like all the firms I know and trust, they're always listed on the website. To the point now, when I look for anything, if their fee's not on the website, I'm like, well, I don't know. Like,
yeah.
So that's another thing. That's me just going on a.
I got one I got to tell you about off the air.
Ooh.
Yeah. No, there's always new ones creeping into the physician space. But we'll talk about it.
Anything we need to close on this one?
No, I think we covered it. As always, reach out with any questions that you've got so that we can help you to answer your questions. And I guess I'll see you on the next one.
All right, my friend. Catch you on the next one.
See you.
This information is for general purposes only. This information is not intended to be a substitute for specific professional, financial, or tax advice, as individual concerns vary. Please see a financial professional, CPA, and/or an attorney in regards to your own individual situation. Wealth Wheels Advisory Services and Financial Planning offered through Vicus Capital Inc., a federally registered investment advisor. Olson Consulting LLC, offering advisory services and financial planning, is a state registered investment advisor.